biggest South Asian media group, Ymedia.
Hello everyone, my name is Yutu Jaswal. I'm the group editor at Ymedia. And as we all know, we are going to have a by-election in Mississauga for the mayor. And this time it's going to be very interesting because approximately from 1978, we've had just two mayors. Our former mayor, late Hazel McCallion, and we had our recent mayor, Bonnie Crombie. Bonnie Crombie, as we all know, she has left the position. Now she's the leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. So a very interesting race has set up now, and on 10th of June, we will be having the mayor elections right here in Mississauga. So for this, we are going to do regular surveys. We've done a poll already in the past as well, and Ymedia has tied up with Mainstreet. Mainstreet is a very recognized polling firm, so I'd like to welcome all the guests here. I'd like to start with Hasneet. He's here with us at the studios. Hasneet, a very warm welcome on Ymedia. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Hasneet has his own firm, Armour Consulting. He's been a resident of Peel almost for a good 4 decades now. I didn't want to really highlight your age. And we also have Quito Maggie. He's the owner of Mainstreet Poll, a very well-recognized name as far as polling and the political circles are concerned. Quito, a very warm welcome on Ymedia. How are you?
I'm well, Yudhvir. Thank you again for having me here tonight.
You're very welcome, very welcome. And we also have Kimberly with us, a very well named as far as the political circles are concerned, political strategist. Kimberly, a very warm welcome. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you? Thanks very much for having me.
You're very welcome. For full disclosure purposes, we'd like to tell you that Kimberly, she is working on Caroline Parish campaign right now, and in the past also she's worked with many campaigns as well. And before we start our discussion, before we highlight, I'd like to discuss the methodology for you, the poll that was conducted by Mainstreet. So on the screen you can see a graphic which will highlight the methodology, and then before we reveal the numbers, we'll take the comments, and then we'll carry on the discussion. So here's the methodology for you, just in case, for our viewers' benefit, in case you do not understand how this poll survey was done. So Ymedia, Mainstreet poll survey. Ymedia is the media company, and Mainstreet is the company which did the poll survey. Dates when the survey was done, it's Saturday, April 6 to Monday, April 8, 2024. Sample size, 887 adults. 18 years of age or older, living in Mississauga. The method used is using automated telephone interviews, smart IVR. Margin of error, that's very important. It's plus or minus 3.3% at 95% confidence level. So that's the margin of error in higher or each sub-sample. So before we get into the discussion, I'd like to tell you that yes, at Ymedia, we publish an English language newspaper by the name Midweek. It goes right across Canada. And currently, I believe Midweek is the only free English newspaper which is circulated across Canada. Do not forget to pick your copy of Midweek newspaper, whether you're in Toronto, Mississauga, Vaughan, Brampton, Oakville, anywhere in GTA. Every Tuesday, you can pick your copy of Midweek newspaper. Right now, we're broadcasting this live on 2 channels. One is Channel Y. Channel Y is broadcasted right across Canada. If you are in Ontario, Quebec, you can watch us on Rogers 857, Bell 828. In case you are in Quebec, British Columbia, or in Alberta, you can watch us on Telus 2418. That's the number for there. You want to watch us on Ignite. Ignite, the channel number is 707, and it's available on all different boxes as well, right across Canada. And we also have our digital platforms by the name Y.Media. You do not need a .com for that. Y.Media or SouthAsianDaily.com. And you're listening this live as we speak on our 24/7 Radio Y. Kudo, why don't I start with you? Before we get into the numbers, we'll definitely come up with the numbers very soon. But Quito, what are you looking for for your opening remarks in this Mississauga's mayoral election? Quito.
Yeah, I guess, the last time we took the snapshot back in February, we had very high undecided. It was almost 50%. It feels like maybe June 10th we're in the early spring. June 10th, that's almost the summertime. It's a long way away, but, it's Kim would probably know better, but 50 days roughly until election day. So that's not very long. We have a sprint from here until election day. It's about 6 weeks. So really, we're going to be following this race pretty closely, probably polling every 2 weeks between now and election day to see what are the changes. There's some interesting changes in this one compared to the last one. So look forward to talking about those with you.
All right. And Kimberly, I'd like to ask you, you've been following many political races. This is another one that you're closely working as well. So what are you looking forward in this race?
You know, I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not we can motivate more voters to turn out into Mississauga. They've traditionally had a very low voter turnout, and I think, your opening comments were very accurate. Because there's been very few turnover in mayor, I'm hoping this time we're going to see a really, fired up race where a lot of people are engaged and a lot of the residents are coming out to vote and expressing their opinion on who they'd like to see as their next mayor.
Yeah, Kimberly, political commentator and political strategist. That's Kimberly for you. Hasneet, you've been very actively involved in different political capacities at the provincial level. I worked with you at the municipal level as well. This time you're out of the race, not working closely, but I'm sure you're following this up as well. What are you looking forward?
Yeah, thank you, Gidru. Yes, I am following it quite closely because I am in a neighboring municipality in Peel. So it does matter who becomes the next mayor of Mississauga. Just looking at Mississauga and the change that's happening in Mississauga, especially with regards to like big investment like transit and healthcare that's happening and the changing city it's becoming, I think residents have a very important choice to make. And it's who you pick is who you want to be as this change takes place. So there's a lot of great candidates running, and I think you have a lot of options out there. You have, like Guido and Kimberly said, we have 6 weeks to get there. And I think a lot will happen, but it does concern me that it is a by-election in the middle of summer. And a lot of people make their vacation plans and they're not really available. So I really do hope that voters get out and vote and keep that turnout up so that it is something that does concern me, and I want to flag that for voters, because if you don't go and vote, then you have no say. So
yeah, and I think I would agree with you and all our guests as well that yes, Mississauga, we must go out and vote. That's the whole idea. That's why we want to keep you engaged more and more. It's very important that you go out and vote. Let me tell you this, that 10th of June, whoever will be elected as the mayor, they will finish the term till 2026, because the term started in 2022 and it will finish in 2026. So they have approximately good 2 years, whoever will be becoming the mayor, and the person will be then incumbent mayor in 2026 as well. And before I go any further, I think this is time to reveal the poll survey. Ymedia Mainstreet poll. We did a poll survey previously. This is the second poll by Ymedia Mainstreet poll survey. So here are the numbers. Here's the first graphic, which will show you what do the numbers look like. Yeah. So on your screen, you can see on full screen. This is the first one. This is a very interesting thing. So the numbers clearly show, as of now, Carolyn Parish in her last poll as well, she was leading. Once again, she's leading with 19.8%. Carolyn Parish, she is leading right now. And at the second position, we have Deepika Damrela. She's at 10.8. Very closely on her heels, it's 10.1 for Stephen Dasco. And then we have Peter McCallion at 7.9. Alvin Tejo at 6.1%. Then, of course, there are 3.3% for others. So this is from all voters. This is the undecided voter. That counts as well. So undecided voters, we have 41.9. These are the undecided voters. So this is the first we are showing you. There will be another graphic as well. But before we move on to our next graphic, Quito, why don't we start with you once again? Mainstreet has done, you lead that. So what's your take on these numbers?
Yeah, I was looking at this compared to the last poll we did about 6 weeks ago, and there's a few interesting things here. The undecided, although it's still high at 41.9, it's down over 6%. The people who told us someone else, that other number, are down significantly as well. And understand when I say significantly, it means it falls outside the margin. Some of the changes here that we see are plus or minus within the margin of error. So combined, decided, and someone else, I think that there was some confusion when we did the first poll back in February about this race, some people may not have known yet at that point that Bonnie Crombie had stepped down as mayor. And so maybe that's why that number was pretty high back in February, and now it's dropped to 3.3. Carolyn Parish is up by 2 points compared to the poll we did. And so is and Deepika Damerla is up about 5 points. Stephen Dasko's up 2 points, and pretty much everybody across the board is up a little bit from the last time we did this poll, and it's all coming from Decided and someone else. So it's pretty even going up, and with 6 weeks to go, it's I think it's too early to call.
Yeah, and Hasneet, what do you have to say on the numbers?
Yeah, the trend line looks like what I would expect to see in terms of what we're hearing and what we're seeing out there. I would note that the 41.9, again, it's not anything that's shocking or anything like that, but it's just a high number. It will continue to come down as election day comes nearer. And it's just something that, look, we're going to see there's a lot of older faces running, a lot of newer people running. And I think, as people get their campaigns out there and into the community, you're going to see the numbers fluctuate. There may be issues that come up that cause the numbers to change. But yeah, it's a good start, and hopefully we can get more and more people involved and interested into the campaigns.
All right, and Kimberly, what's your take? Now we have the numbers revealed, please.
Yeah, I'm encouraged as well to see that some of that undecided or those people that were not engaged are starting to get engaged. And I think that's the power of all of the different campaigns going out and, making at least the voters aware that there's going to be an election. It is a little bit concerning that it is going to be June. And I tend to agree that there's going to be a lot of people that are just not engaged because it's already summertime, which is going to be, unfortunate for the candidates that are working hard and trying to push out their vote and trying to get people engaged in a by-election. There's a couple of things. Already a by-election usually doesn't, garner the same number of people attending in voter turnout. But, given that there's been such stability in the mayors over so many years, with this being an actual race, I think we will see more of those undecided start to come in and make their issues known. And I think that's what will end up, separating the candidates out. What issues are important to voters and what candidate is resonating with them the most.
All right. And at this point, we're going to show you another graphic which would only have the decided voters. So in case the elections were held today, the decided voters, this would be the graphic. So if you look at the screen on your full screen, it's for decided voters. Really not much of a change. Carolyn Parish at 34%. She's definitely leading in there. Deepika at 18.7. Stephen Dasko at 17.5. Peter McCallan at 13.5. Alvin Techo at 13.5. And then others at 5.6. This is, mind you, the decided voters that we are taking into account. And I'll let Quito explain why would we do two things. We have explained it earlier as well, but just in case for our viewers' benefit, Quito, what is the significance of the previous one, which had undecided at 41.99? Now we have all the decided voters, please.
Yeah, so this is the percentage of the people who had said that they decided or were leaning towards a particular candidate. So this sample size is 516. Of the 887, 516 had told us who they were going to vote for. And so when we take that, the remaining 516, and we reweigh it to the census population, and we come up with these new numbers.
Yeah. So when you look at the decided voters, Quito, I want to take your opinion. So this is some sort of a substantial lead at 34%. As of now, Carolyn Parish seems to be very strong. Then you have two candidates. They're still not too far behind, but a little bit of a gap there. And it'll be very interesting to watch what our future polls would reveal. But right now, one candidate clearly the front runner. You have two Deepika and another one, they're clearly following him, but there's still a margin, and then you have other candidates there. Quito.
Yeah, like I said, on the all voters, everybody's moved up a little bit. Last time in February, Carolyn Parrish had 32% decided and leaning. Now she's up to 34. Still within the margin of error, but it is still a gain. Deepika was at 12 or 13% last time. She's up into like you said, second place, but a statistical tie with Stephen Dasko, another counselor. Alvin Tejo at 10%. With Peter McCallion, the former mayor's son, Peter McCallion, coming in pretty strongly as well, 13.7, and each of them has their strengths and their weaknesses. And I don't know, Yveer, if we're going to get into talking about the ward breakouts, but it's really interesting to note that everybody has their regional strength. Where their votes are coming from Mississauga. The only one really who has consistent strength across all the wards, with the exception of one or two, it really is Carolyn Parrish. So definitely, the early front runner, the odds-on favorite, no doubt. But there are 6 weeks is a lifetime in politics, so anything can happen, I guess.
Yeah. Kimberly, I want to ask you, I think Carolyn, she has some sort of advantage as well, because the municipal elections, the name recognition is very important. So almost 3 to 4 decades, Carolyn Parrish has been very active at the federal level and at the municipal level. So her name recognition is a little bit more. So maybe that was an advantage as a front runner. Do you think now there will be some sort of pressure on her to maintain this lead?
I think there's always pressure to maintain the lead when you're the leading candidate, certainly. But, Carolyn has done a lot for the city of Mississauga, from being a federal MP for the city of Mississauga for 13 years, and now being a regional councillor for 13 years, plus sitting around the region of Peel. Carolyn's track record is really outstanding when it comes to accomplishments for the city, and getting out there and getting things done in a timely manner. So I think those are the things that are pulling through. It's not just name recognition, it's name recognition attached to accolades of getting a lot of work done for the city of Mississauga, and being a front and champion for Mississauga for all of these years.
Okay. Hasneet, I want your take. Do you think Deepika Damrela or Stephen Dasko or Peter Kelly, anybody will be able to catch up? Or is this too early, or you think there isn't too much of a time? Your take.
Yeah, I hear what my other colleagues are saying. I just think it's a little bit early at this point. People don't really start crystallizing their decision, even though I know we're talking about decided voters, it's a small sample. Yeah. People don't really start deciding, to be honest with you, within a week of an election. I think all the candidates that are on the board, they have done a lot of things for Mississauga. And I think I don't disagree at all that Carolyn's been out there for a long time. I think she's been around as long as I've been born. So that's a long time. Don't want to share my age again. But I would say that I think there's going to be quite a race. And I know some of the teams that are formed around the campaigns. I know a lot of them. And I think they're going to make this race very interesting. I'm more interested to watch how this race moves, because it's a by-election in the summer. We know municipal turnout is below 30%. It's not great. And if you can just swing people on issues or items, which are possible, and the communication techniques and the tools that you use to do it, it's not just about door knocking anymore in campaigns, this can become a very interesting campaign. So I'm quite interested to see what the candidates and the campaigns do.
So you probably think the race is still wide open?
I don't want to say that. I think Carolyn Parrish has an edge on it, but I think it's not something that I would say that she's going to run away with at this point. I wouldn't go that far, because I hear the chatter, I see what's happening, and the voting demographics in Mississauga have changed like everywhere else in Peel, and I want to see what the campaigns can do. And as we get closer and the undecided number comes down, you'll be able to see, does it really formalize? Does it stay that way? It could. Or does it change based on an issue, based on an item, or the past, or something comes up about somebody? So I think elections are like an open, like Keto and Kimberly both said. Elections are a funny thing, and week to week, it can change.
Okay. I want to stick with you, and why don't we move quickly on to the issues now? So, of course, we all know housing, affordability, crime, so many other important issues. So, whoever takes over charge as the new mayor, it's not going to be easy. So, what do you think are the issues that are being hotly debated in Mississauga?
Yeah, so thank you. Firstly, I would say whoever gets to be the next mayor of Mississauga, you have some huge shoes to fill. Bonnie Crombie was a great mayor, and she was on a number of items that are very important. And 100% housing affordability, and whether people see themselves owning a home in Peel and or here in Ontario in general, and just the provincial government's focus, the federal government focus, Mississauga has a big role to play in that regard. Mississauga is one of the largest cities in Canada, and the mayor of Mississauga, again, Mayor Crombie did this well, maintains a strong relationship with the federal and provincial government. And as we saw on many occasions, Mayor Crombie was able to sway the federal provincial government to move policy items and decisions. And so, whoever becomes that person, whether it's housing affordability, taxation, livability in the city, how rec programs are managed, especially after we've come out of COVID, I think a lot of families are looking for ways. Everyone's finally coming back out, and they're looking to get back into the social fabric of the city, and how they go about and how the candidates respond to that and how they move forward, especially maintaining fiscal prudence while doing that, is going to be very interesting to watch. So I look forward to seeing policies from some of the campaigns. I know it's not the heart of the issue, but especially focusing on the seniors demographic. And I think that young family, they're really looking at what are you going to do for them? And I think when you speak to those groups, I think those are the ones that will be really voting in the election, and that's that 30%. So,
yeah. And Kimberly, I'll come to you. What do you think would be the major issues whoever takes the reins of the Mississauga mayor on 10th of June?
Yeah, I mean, I think affordability is the big issue. People are, we're hearing it at the federal level, we're hearing it at the provincial level, and we're certainly hearing it at the municipal level. People are having a hard time meeting their bills, and that's seniors, that's younger people that are perhaps, dealing with aging parents and younger children. People can't afford to buy a home. So there's, I think affordability is going to be on every front your biggest sort of issue that people are going to struggle with. And I think that the campaigns are going to have to address that. How are we going to support the people of Mississauga under the new leadership? How are people going to be able to stay in Mississauga, function in Mississauga, work, live, and enjoy their lives in Mississauga while maintaining all of those relationships? So I think affordability is really going to be your biggest issue.
Yeah, and since you've mentioned affordability, I'll add affordability, housing and all these things, inflation. There's an interesting thing that's happening in Mississauga. Being in media, we say, okay, what's the population for Canada? 39 million, 39.5, then 40, 41. Oh, it's jumping. The numbers are so fast increasing. But here is Mississauga. Everywhere else, most of the places in Canada, we're seeing an increase in population. And Mississauga, people are leaving Mississauga. The last census we saw a decline in population. So I was quite intrigued to know why are people leaving Mississauga. So one of the things, as you just mentioned, is affordability. And one of the things for the mayor would be to how do you make sure people stay there to retain your tax base, and they just have property, the property tax. Other than that, there's not much of a base there. So there are some infrastructure deficits as well in Mississauga. So we'll talk about that as well. But Quito, I'll come to you. These are some big shoes to fill. One of the leading cities in Canada, Mississauga's mayor. What would be the challenges?
Yeah, I think I agree 100% with what Haz and Kim said about it. In terms of issues, I think the one thing, you touched on it, these are big shoes to fill. I think Mississauga residents are used to having a very influential, charismatic leader in their mayor, someone who's not afraid to stand up to the premier, the prime minister, have those difficult conversations about things. And so, personality might come to be the deciding factor on who people believe can have those conversations with Doug Ford, with Justin Trudeau, and with whoever's prime minister after Justin Trudeau. and potential premier after Doug Ford, I suppose, too. Mayors in Mississauga do tend to serve for a very long time, so you don't know how long whoever wins is going to be there for, but it could be a very long time. So I think personality is in some way as important as the issues, at least for Mississauga.
Okay, Quito, I'm going to stick with you for a minute here. I want to ask you, this is a very interesting part because we all know the incumbent mayor or the former mayors, if they endorse anyone, it's always a great help. As of now, I've tried to see if there is a very strong endorsement from the former mayor and the current Liberal leader, Bonnie Crombie. I have my own things which I've done some research, but I want the viewpoints of all our panel members. Quito, why don't I start with you? Would the endorsement from Bonnie Crombie, how much that would help? Will it change the complexion of this game? And have you heard about her endorsing anyone? Quito, we'll start with you.
I have not heard of anything about her endorsing anyone or not, but I do have some thoughts in general on endorsements and their impact. We have the example of the Toronto mayoral by-election just last year, where we had a front runner in Olivia Chow, and then a big pack of, including other councillors and other prominent candidates that were running. And in the end, in the last 10 days of the election, there were 2 high-profile endorsements for Anna and 1 high-profile endorsement for Mark Saunders, the former police chief. John Tory's endorsement, no doubt, plus the Toronto Star coming back-to-back days, definitely propelled Anna Bailão into a very strong second, almost caught Olivia Chow. And even, the Mark Saunders endorsement by Doug Ford did have an impact. I think it came a little bit too late, and people had already started moving towards Anna Bailão. The 2014 mayoral election, perfect example. Steve Mahoney, Bonnie Crombie were in a very tight mayoral election here in Mississauga the last time there was a competitive election. And the former mayor, Hazel McCallion, endorsed Bonnie Crombie, I think about 10 days out from election day. And literally overnight, Bonnie Crombie took off and won with 2/3 of the vote and has won each election with subsequently higher. So endorsements do matter. Whether or not Bonnie Crombie is going to endorse anyone in this race, I guess my thought is I would doubt it, just because she's not out of politics. She's still at a different level of politics, and an endorsement may or may not benefit her politically as well. It could impact her negatively. So I would say I would doubt it, but you never know.
Okay, good points. Thank you. Good points. Yeah, Kimberly, what do you think about the endorsement, the whole question that I asked? Same for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with Quito. Endorsements can be helpful. In this case, I would, if I were Bonnie, be very concerned about an endorsement, regardless of who becomes mayor. In her leadership position with the Liberal Party, she is going to have to work with the mayor. There's 6 ridings in Mississauga. I would be quite concerned if she were going to come out and endorse anybody that perhaps doesn't make it as mayor. How is she going to deal with the new mayor of Mississauga if it's not the person that she endorsed? So, as the leader of the party, I think I would be concerned about that if I were her. So I would be surprised if there is an endorsement in this case. She's also said herself that she's not endorse anyone. So let's see if she sticks to that.
Okay, Hasneet, Bonnie Crombie's role.
Yeah, former Mayor Crombie, again, a very loved mayor of Mississauga, as you saw from her election results in the last 2 campaigns for sure. I would say, look, I know many people on her team, so I don't have any knowledge of any endorsement or anything like that. But I would say, I wouldn't be shocked if former Mayor Crombie wasn't paying close attention to the race. This is her hometown. This is the place where she ran as a MP and a mayor, and she cares about Mississauga a lot. So if she has something to say, and I'm not saying I know she does, it will matter. It will impact the race. As Quito said before, we watched in Toronto as Mayor Tory, after everything that had happened, gave that endorsement, and the numbers swung in the matter of a couple of days. And I was there to watch that too as well, Kido knows. So I would say, I don't know if she's going to do anything, but if she does, it will definitely impact the race. Will it be enough to win or change it? I don't know. I couldn't speak to that. But it'll be definitely, it's another storyline to watch that I think voters will be very interested to, because former Mayor Crombie's been around for a long time, and if she says something, it's going to have a big impact one way or the other.
Yeah, and you're right. As you just mentioned, Bonnie Crombie's entire political life has revolved around Mississauga, whether at the federal level or at the municipal level. But of course, now she's there at the provincial level. This is her hometown as well. And at this point, I'd like to, before we wrap up, there is a final question for all our guests. I've worked in Mississauga throughout my life since I came to Canada from day one. Our first office where we operate for Midweek and Radio Y, it's in Mississauga. We're operating Channel Y again here in Mississauga. And we will be opening our new studios right across the City Hall in Square One, Mississauga very shortly. That will be our third studio, and it'll be again in Mississauga. So for some reason, I'm very attached to this city. I've never lived in Mississauga, but I've worked throughout my life in Canada, in Mississauga. This is quite interesting. I'm sure all of us are one way or the other connected to Mississauga. Quito, I'll start with you. A very straightforward question. If you had the wish list to ask just one thing, same question for all three of you, what would be just one thing on your wish list that this should be done in Mississauga? This is your expectation from the Mayor of Mississauga. Just one. I know you could have many, but just one. Quito, we'll start with you.
Jesus, like everybody else, I think, what are they going to do about car thefts and traffic and affordability and making day-to-day life more affordable? I think that's top of mind for everyone right now. It's consistent, not just right across the GTA, but really everywhere.
Okay, good. What's your on top agenda, your wish list, Kimberly?
I think on top of my wish list for the next mayor of Mississauga would be housing. Mississauga is one of the cities that did not hit their housing growth quota that the provincial government brought down, and I think it is doable. My biggest wish would be that they were to hit that quota, get that promotional money to continue to build more houses so people can live and afford to live in Mississauga. So that would be my number one.
Okay, Hasneet.
Yeah, so if I'm thinking about the people that listen to your show, Yudhvir, I would say I'm really going to listen to the candidates and how they talk about, again, I know crime is a major issue, it's an easy one to give, but I want to see how the counselor or the candidates are going to handle sort of the students and the people that are coming in flux. Peel is handling some of the largest growth numbers outside of Toronto in terms of newcomers and how we deal with them. Again, we've been dealing with them for a long time in Peel, both the cities of Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon, but the issue has become bigger and bigger, and there's a lot of things that I think the cities themselves can do, along with working with the provincial and federal governments. And I want to be clear that a lot of the fiscal pressures will come from the federal and the provincial governments, but the cities are the players on the grounds that are dealing with this issue. And when you can get a handle of that issue, you may notice the crime issue come down, because I think people are left no choices but to do things that they wouldn't do just to survive. And so I think I'm going to look for what the candidates have to say. Again, it doesn't have to be a policy item, but just how I've seen them behave or how they interact and they work on these issues. It tells you a lot. And I think voters, look, you get one chance to ask questions. Ask your questions now. That's what I would say to all voters, because you can't say after that I didn't get to ask my question.
Yeah, that's right. I think I couldn't agree more with all of you. I think these are very important issues. Housing is a very important issue. Crime is a very important issue. Affordability, as you mentioned, is a very important issue. And as you were mentioning, the influx of many people, and especially in Mississauga, there's Sheridan College there. There's so many other institutes there. So how do we manage that? It's very important. But how about a world-class stadium as well? We do not have a massive arena. We do have arenas in Toronto. We do have arenas in Hamilton. Many of the shows are happening there. But how about a world-class arena or a stadium? First time in the history of 100 years cricket, US is holding a T20 Cricket World Cup. The interesting part, Canada and US. They are at the opening matches. The first match in cricket, it's not Australia, it's not West Indies, it's not South Africa, it's not India or even Pakistan or Sri Lanka. It's Canada versus US. First time in the history of cricket, it's happening in US. They have built some world-class cricket stadiums. First time in the history of T20 World Cup, Canada has qualified. We're playing there as a cricketing nation. So, and we have the 2026 World Cup soccer coming to Canada. Toronto and Vancouver are leading. But why not, if at all, to put Mississauga on the world map, global map, we could have a world-class stadium, soccer, cricket, or an arena which could host massive events. I don't think so, 4,000 or 5,000 capacity arenas would really serve anything in future. We need places where you could host 10,000, 12,000, 50,000, or even 20,000 for that matter. So the events are getting bigger. So this would be on my wish list. But before I let our guests go, I have a very esteemed panel. I'll quickly take this opportunity. Anything that you want to add before I let you go? Each one of you has 20 seconds for that. Quito, we'll start with you.
Yeah, just to point out what I said earlier, each of the candidates has their own strength. Stephen Dasko's leading in his ward pretty substantially. Alvin Techo in his ward. Devika Damerla in her ward. Even Peter McCallion in where in the region that he's from, and of course Carolyn Parrish in her old Ward 5 is leading very substantially. So it's going to come down to who can broaden their support outside their home area, and that's not an easy task to do in 6 weeks.
Okay, Kimberly, your 20 seconds, your final take.
I'm looking forward to seeing what all of the different policies are from each of the candidates. And, like Quito said, 6 weeks is a very sprint to the end for this campaign and the by-election and the fact that it's summer. So, I'm very curious to see what are going to be the hot issues that certainly heat up over the next few weeks that will start to separate the candidates and what people are wanting to hear from their next mayor of Mississauga.
All right. Your final thoughts, Hasneet.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, and thank you to the other panelists. It was great having this conversation with you. And I would just say, it's an old saying that goes, the only poll that matters is election day. And I kind of say that, but it's more about like the diversity and the demographic changes in Mississauga that have been taking place. I've been involved in politics in Peel for the last 20 years, and I can tell you from the time that I started to what it is now is two different things. And to navigate the politics in Peel is one of the hardest things in the country to do. And when you get good at it, it's very rare to see that person. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how all these camps adjust to how it works, how they communicate with voters, and how they drive them out to vote on June 10th. Like, it's going to be very, very hard. So I look forward to this, and all I can do is encourage the people that are listening to please go and vote, because it's very, very important.
All right. At this point, I'd like to thank all our panel members, starting with you, Quito, Maggie, and your team. Thank you so much for all the hard work that you do. Please go check out Ymedia Mainstreet poll. Mainstreet has been done a phenomenal job. And Quito, I won't name the person because the discussion was off the record, but just today, someone was telling me that a leading media person was really appreciating that Mainstreet has been doing a remarkable job. Not that we are aligned with you, but I'm getting very good feedback since we started doing this Mainstreet poll survey, and we will carry on doing this poll surveys. Thank you so much for that. And just for viewers' benefit, the first poll survey that we did, that was covered in a lot of international media as well, not just media in Canada. They covered at an international level as well. So, so we are pleased to announce this, that the Ymedia Mainstreet poll surveys are being covered at an international level as well. Thank you so much, Quitty, and your entire team at Mainstreet poll. Thank you so much. Kimberly, I can't
thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome. Kimberly, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for taking out time. I know you're very busy. You took out time from your busy schedule. It's always great to have you on air, and we'll carry on discussing with you. Kimberly, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jubir. Always a pleasure to be here.
Welcome. And Hasneet, thank you. I know you're a busy man too. Most likely we'll have you more on our panel discussions. You have, lots of insights to offer. Thank you so much, Hasneet.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. We will carry on more poll surveys in the future, Ymedia Mainstreet poll survey, and we will keep you updated with all the issues, what's happening not only in Mississauga, but in other parts of Canada, and of course at a global level. Keep watching Ymedia. Thank you.
Biggest South Asian media group, Ymedia.